Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today is a very special day because we are looking at every single goddamn anime that your boy has ever watched, starting from my late teenage years going forward. And by every anime I've ever seen, I'm being a little inaccurate because if we go over here to my anime list, there's a lot of shit on here that you'll see ratings for each show. Certain things I have not rated because I watched it before I made this account. So everything from like my adult life going forward has a rating. Anything before that, like my teenage years, Angel Beats, all that shit, it doesn't have a rating because I don't think my opinion would hold up for any of those shows. So I don't even give it a rating. And since I don't remember what my opinion is, I'm not putting it on the tier list. And also I'm not including short films. I'm not including like music videos. I'm not including sequels. So some of these shows have like 10 sequels. I'm just putting them all into one category. Instead of like 10 seasons of Agretzko, it's just one entry. Make it simple. Make it clean cut, make it easier to understand. And also, I feel like I missed some, because as we were just scrolling through there, like I don't see like Princess Mononoke, I don't see some other stuff. Like I have some Dragon Ball movies, but not others. It is what it is. It's accurate enough. I had to download like dozens of JPEGs to get this ready. I did my best. I'm gonna put one into each category to kind of give a perspective of like what that category's level is. What is its power level? Spirited Away. Spirited Away is God tier. I recently got a fucking Spirited Away tattoo. Can barely fucking see it because of my pant leg, but it's sexy. I love it. I love Spirited Away. All right, my favorites. Cyberpunk Edgerunners was like 10 episodes of every single emotion packed into this nice little Netflix contained epic. Got a lot of my favorite anime shit in there. It's got waifus, action, deep character development, like very thoughtful themes. It's epic. I love it. Sugoi are like the really solid shows that I really like, but I would even say I love them, but they're not like the best ones ever. I'm gonna put Claymore right there because it's a good example of like a solid show, but you know, the manga was better. I'm just gonna say that about Claymore. The manga was better, but it's a really good show. I don't think I need to describe what mid is. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna put Wonder Egg Priority right there. No, I'm not. I liked Wonder Egg Priority. Fuck other people's opinion. Snow White with the red hair. Y'all might never have heard of it, but my wife has, and she made me watch the entire show, and it was all right. Worse than mid. I'm gonna say it. The Ruby anime. Ruby is already like a not amazing property, but I liked Ruby for what it was. It kind of kept getting worse, but is what it is. But the anime, don't watch it. It's a waste. It's a waste of time. At the front of the pack, and I didn't mean to make a pun there, we got Beastars. The animation for this show is very hit or miss with people, but I think a lot of people can agree the story is there, the characters are there. I personally could not get over the animation, and I actually really like a lot of 3D shows, but something particular, maybe it's just because they're all, it's Zootopia. It's Zootopia as an anime. I just couldn't really get into it. The second season I thought got better, but I still don't think it was great. I'm gonna say it was Sugoi though. It's right there in Sugoi. Orange. This is another one I read the manga for. The manga was pretty good. It's a lot of, you've seen these shows. Anime, high school, teenagers professing our feelings for one another. It's pretty good. I would even say it's Sugoi, at the bottom of Sugoi. I'm gonna put in another tier. Hey, that's pretty good. I would say that about Orange. I would say that about Beastars too. Nobody watches bad shows to the very end. Like a lot of these shows are gonna give positive scores for me because I don't finish the shitty shows. Anyway, Dr. Stone. This includes Stone Wars, but not the new season airing right now. Dr. Stone is like one of those shows that like hits really hard at the beginning, and then it just kind of keeps doing more of the same. And then like you get into an arc that's just kind of like, I don't know about this chief, but then the OP plays, and it's great. Ups and downs with this one, but otherwise I would say it's Sugoi. This is like the most generic isekai show I've ever seen. It's like the most 6 out of 10 show. I can't remember the name of it, because you know these shows, they have like a small paragraph where the title should be mid, and as being generous. ID Invaded. I have a review out for this on my second channel, Soul Show, and I think it's a lot of cool concepts, some really interesting animation, and that's about it. I don't think this is the kind of show that I'm gonna ever watch again, or like get the inkling to show my friends or anything. It's just kind of the show you put on, and then you're like, oh, I already sunk like 6 episodes into this, I should really finish it. And then by the time you do, you're just like, I didn't need to finish it. I'm gonna say it's mid. A Whisker Away. I made a main channel video about this movie. It's a lot of Neko. It's a lot of cats. The cat anime. It's actually really fun though. I actually really like the studio. I know they just make Netflix movies, but they got a lot of feeling. I'm gonna say that's Sugoi. And then we have Aggretsuko, which is like 5 seasons, a Christmas special. I adore Aggretsuko. This is the most like comforting show, but usually comforting shows don't have like fun character arcs that actually like go from season to season. They don't have like an actual like just solid ending, which I thought Aggretsuko had, even if it was kind of weird. She was like getting into politics. Like it got kind of weird in the end, but I think the show peaked in its 3rd season. I think I gave the 3rd season like a 9 out of 10. Like I really fucking loved Aggretsuko. But is it a favorite or is it God tier? With Cyberpunk down here, I don't feel comfortable putting Aggretsuko in God tier. But Aggretsuko as a character is like one of the most recognizable to me in anime. I love Aggretsuko. Neon Genesis Evangelion. One of the most hyped shows, one of the most historic shows, and one of the hardest shows to understand. You need an encyclopedia to understand the themes and the galaxy brain ideas happening in Neon Genesis. I did watch a couple of those like hour-long analysis videos about this show once I got through it. I still gotta watch all the movies. This only includes Evangelion and End of Eva. I don't feel comfortable talking about anything else. And I really did love this show when I finished it, but I don't think I've come back to it as much as I thought I would. Like, it hasn't lurked in my cranium headspace with all my other favorite shows. I don't think about it too often, but I do know I was fucking blown away when I saw it. It was just kind of frustrating because, again, they leave too much to the imagination, in my opinion. I'm gonna say that's in favorites. I would put that on the same level as Cyberpunk, kind of up here at the top. Burn the Witch. This is one of those shows, like, you ever watching a show and you're like just kind of watching the animation and appreciating it, and like you're really into the characters, but like the story and like the settings, they're just kind of hitting you with all this, and you just don't really care. You're kind of just watching it for the aesthetic appeal, I guess you could say. I kind of fell into that with Burn the Witch. I do really like it though. I don't want to say it's like on par with some of these other ones. So for right now, I'm gonna say, where did I just drop it? Oh, there it is. I'm gonna say, hey, that's pretty good. I felt like playing that. Jujutsu Kaisen. This is another one of those super hype shows. It's a shonen darling, like a new generation of shonen fans. My tattoo artist, he was like, Jujutsu Kaisen, the best show I've ever watched. Hyped it to high heaven. I watched it and I struggled to finish it. Vanessa and I, we sat down so many times, and every single time it was like our second option. Like, do you want to watch this or Jujutsu Kaisen? And whatever else always won. And we were just trying to get through it by the end. But the ending, like, it definitely won me around with the ending because the action kicks in into overdrive, and it looks amazing, don't get me wrong. OP is really nice. There's a lot of things to like about it, but I wouldn't say it's better than any of these shows. I like Claymore more than I like Jujutsu Kaisen. I'm gonna say it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I don't feel ready to talk about Attack on Titan because the ending is going to happen later this year, and the ending is going to be make or break for this show. I say that, like, it's still going to be an amazing show, but I feel like a lot is riding on the ending for me. But Attack on Titan is the show that kept getting better. It started off pretty great to begin with, but every single season just kept ramping it up. And by the time you got to the end, it was the hypest show ever. It's probably the most epic show on this tier list. I'm going to say it is God tier. And I actually went back and rewatched the whole show with Vanessa because she hadn't seen it. It lived up. It lived up. Next up, we have, there's season 2 of Dr. Stone. I'll just put it right next to the other one. Again, I was just trying to download as many JPEGs as possible as fast as I could. So some seasons I downloaded 2 for, some I missed. It happens. After that, we got Digimon Adventure. This shout out to my buddy Keith, big Digimon guy. Long history with him and I between the Digimon and Pokemon franchises. Specifically Digimon, I would say, though, more so. Digimon is pretty good. It's really corny. You know, it's got a lot of, like, the same problems as old Pokemon. You know, the battles are pretty obsolete. The character development, a lot of that stuff, it's very kid-friendly. But it does have a spirit to it. It does have a sense of adventure and some really cool monster designs. I love Gabumon. I am the biggest Gabumon stan. It's just pretty good, you know. Naruto Shippuden. God. See, this is what's not fair about this, that one little picture can represent like 500 episodes, but some of these other things I watched in a weekend. Naruto Shippuden, it took me a really long time to watch. That was like a year out of my life. I watched the filler. And don't get me wrong, Naruto without the filler is fucking peak. I love Naruto. The filler definitely weighs it down. I will say it's in my favorites. I've grown up with these characters at this point. I was very invested in a lot of the arcs. The Pain arc is like probably my favorite. I love it. Yu Yu Hakusho. Another show that I watched as a kid and I came back to, and it only exceeded my nostalgia. The characters are amazing. It's one of those old 90s shows that like really encapsulate that style, the pacing, the fact that there's a big stupid tournament, big stupid demon power-ups. It kicked ass. God tier. I love Yu Yu Hakusho. It's going to be a show I come back to throughout the years. I still think about Yu Yu Hakusho, whereas like some of my other favorites I don't. Speaking of which, Anthem of the Heart. This is one of those like late night shows, or movies I should say. One of those late night films, you're just kind of scrolling through stuff and then you finally find something and it was amazing. But that was like 6 years ago. So I can't really invest that much emotion into one little movie I watched like 6 years ago. But at the time, fucking kicked ass. I loved it. I'm gonna say it's in my favorites. Yasuke. This is not a good show. A lot of people were offended by the kind of terrible historical adaptation to the Black Samurai. I didn't really like get offended by that. I don't know much about Yasuke to begin with, but even as a story, it falls to pieces. The animation is like very inconsistent. Sometimes it looks banger, other times it looks Flying Lotus is probably the best part of it, but I actually really tried to like it, and it was just not interesting, which is probably its worst offense. I'm gonna say it's worse than mid. I'd rather watch any of these other shows. Fruits Basket. This is the remake. This would, if this was my wife's tier list, this would be God tier. She was side by side with me watching this show, crying every other episode, very invested into these characters, and I was beside her just like, yeah, it was a pretty good episode. The final season was definitely like the peak for me. The final season was pretty great. And there's some moments of the show that are like lodged into my brain forever. But as a episode to episode thing, you know, I liked it a lot. I would say it's sugoi. But definitely not as hyped as my wife would be. Bell. This is Mamoru Hosoda's latest film, and I don't think it's on par with a lot of his other movies. Even like seeing this in theater and the banger soundtrack for this one, those like really save it for me. But half of this movie is like worthless to me. There's entire plot sections where there's like a Beauty and the Beast like comparison. I don't like that. I don't like the bad guys. The whole cyberspace didn't really make sense in this one. I would say it's pretty good though, the soundtrack alone. Words bubble up like soda pop. This one I actually watched with Vanessa, and then she fell asleep and I finished it. It's actually really good because the art direction. What is that genre of music? City pop. It's like a city pop aesthetic, but throughout the whole movie. And the movie's pretty good too. It's very chill. It's not a lot of high stakes. You know, it's teenagers' feelings, all that stuff that you've seen in 1,000 other anime. But I really liked it. This is Summer Wars. This is the first anime, my first review I ever did. It's on YouTube. It's a terrible video, by the way. Don't watch it. But I have nostalgia with Summer War because of that. I remember like early anime YouTube, like everyone did a review of Summer Wars for some reason, and it was really good. I think this is probably my favorite Mamoru Hosoda film. I'm gonna give it the Sugoi. Komi Can't Communicate. This show is real cute. I was also watching it around the time I was learning hiragana, so the fact that this show puts hiragana everywhere was very cathartic for me. It kind of falls apart towards the end. You kind of just go through the routine of the show. It really starts to get into its cycle, but it's a pretty good show. It's cute. That's pretty good. After that, oh shit. Let's talk about Dragon Ball Z. Peak. The peak anime. Every fucking show you've ever watched inspired by Dragon Ball Z. If not, it's worse than Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z is the godfather daddy anime. Most iconic characters. The most popular anime in the world. Amazing arcs. Power-ups, tournaments. All of the cool anime shit out there inspired by Dragon Ball Z. And I grew up with it, and that's really the only reason I'm gonna put it in God tier. I did go back and rewatch all Dragon Ball Z, filler and all, with Vanessa, and she enjoyed it. This dusty ass 80s anime. 80s into 90s. And she liked it. After that, we have Star Wars Visions. I'm actually watching season 2 right now. I'm like 2 episodes away from finishing it, but this is actually a really fun show. Like, there's a lot of really cool ideas and a lot of really cool different concepts and art directions, because every studio is given like its own story, or they have their own idea of what they want to do, because each episode is by a different studio. And season 2, it's pretty much just American studios. I don't know why they dedicate themselves to making an anime, and then season 2 rolls around, they're like, okay, let's come back to America. Yeah, I liked Visions a lot. The Way of the House Husband. This is a show about a former Yakuza who turns into a housewife. And as you can imagine, it's pretty hilarious. I do think it kind of just repeats the same jokes a lot. And I think the cast is pretty minimal. But I laugh my ass off, and that's good enough for me. That's pretty good. Mushoku Tensei, which depending on who you ask is either like the most like basic isekai, or it's like peak anime, like anime of the decade right here. And this is actually when I had COVID. This was my COVID show. You know, everyone just binged a show whenever they had COVID. I binged Mushoku Tensei, and I'm glad I did, because I liked going through the adventure like at a rapid speed, like seeing these characters evolve so quickly. And it's like one of those big grand adventures, but it doesn't feel complete because there's so much more to adapt after this, and it didn't feel like it really finished its story. I feel like when I finish it, it'll definitely be a favorite, but for now, it's just sugoi. The Promised Neverland. I have not watched season 2, and I have no urgency to watch it either, but the first season was very good. You know, very dark, creepy undertones. Even though all these kids are dressed the same and have very similar character traits, you can tell each and every one of them from the other one. There's actually some like really cool plot twists and shit here and there. I'm gonna give Promised Neverland sugoi. Wonder Egg Priority, which I almost threw in mid, but then I remembered, oh yeah, this show looks amazing. The soundtrack, I did a whole stream just listening to the soundtrack. I really like Wonder Egg Priority, even though the ending is shit. The pacing of the show is shit. A lot of the overworld and like plot settings, a lot of things that, you know, your story is structured around, shit. But I don't care. It's either the bottom of sugoi or I would say it's about as good as Jujutsu Kaisen. After that, we have Dress Up Darling. This is like your seasonal animes that like are really popular and then they die down. A lot of people really like this girl. I just kind of felt like this show was not very different than any of the other like basic romance high school shows. It had this whole cosplay element, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm not that into cosplay. They try to like really appreciate it, and I do feel like I've learned more about cosplay watching this, and maybe I do appreciate some other things about it, but you know, it's just a horny show for teenagers at the end of the day. But it's pretty good. What the fuck is that? Oh, that's Birdie Wing. I'm actually doing a whole video about Birdie Wing right now. I'm like 90% of the way done. So that'll probably be the next video you see on the main channel. Birdie Wing is a golf girl anime. It's girls hitting like shonen battle poses and strikes against these golf balls. There's a mafia that like half the plot is centered around. It's great. As silly as they're being, they're also like really serious, and I don't know how they blend that so well. I like Birdie Wing. Fuck it. It's sugoi. Bubble. This is another one of those like Netflix anime movies that like look really pretty but don't have a lot of substance to them, and it's probably on the bottom tier of those, despite I think it might be the best looking one. Like, these kids are doing these parkour moves, they're doing these sexy backflips, and by the time it's over, it's kind of a mess. I'm not doing these left to right, but just to like kind of put it into a headspace, it's towards the top. What was the show? Hanobo Log or something like that? This was just like one of those, you finish it in a day, like short shows. It was pretty mid. Tokyo Revengers. This show is pretty overhyped. Like, a lot of people are telling me I gotta watch Tokyo Revengers. I kind of hate the main character. Like, that's kind of the point, is that he's like this scrappy underdog. But he's just not enjoyable to be around. The setting is just kind of whack. They're literally middle schoolers who drive around on motorcycles. I kind of like, it has like a time travel element where they get older, and I do like those parts of the show. And I do like Mikey and the other main characters. There's some fun parts of the show, but it's definitely like not as hyped as some people are treating it. It's pretty good. Sword Art Online Ordinal Scale. Did I get that right? This is the only piece of Sword Art Online content I've watched like in the past 6+ years, and I'm so proud of myself for doing that. It'll be the only Sword Art Online on this list, and I remember it being pretty mid, just like Sword Art Online. Drifting Home. I watched this earlier this week. This is another Netflix anime movie, but the premise is a little different. It's about these, I think they're middle school kids. They're really young, and they're like in these old apartments before they get teared down, and they have so much nostalgia for this place. They're one of the kids' grandpa used to live here before he died, and they have all this history, and they have like emotional baggage. They have a lot of like, just from looking around this place, you don't think that they could pack that much of an emotional weight to kids, but they do. And the apartment, by the way, like teleports into the middle of an ocean, and they're stuck on an ocean. It becomes a survival movie. It's really good, actually. I like Drifting Home a lot. Then we got Spy Family. This is parts 1 and 2. I really like Spy Family. I think it's a little overrated. Like, I never watched a Spy X Family episode and I was like, anime of the decade. I fucking love Spy X Family. It was a good show. It looked really nice, but I think it's overhyped. Like, I honestly don't think it should be up here with some of these other shows, but I do think it's better than everything down here. So I'll put it in Sugoi. Romantic Killer. This is actually a really fun show. The characters are very likable. It does turn into another high school boring romance show, but you know, it was pretty good. Zombieland Saga. This is one of the funniest shows I've seen. It's about a bunch of dead girls, literally dead human beings, who get resurrected to become idols. And the guy at the helm of this project is amazing. That being said, it kind of just becomes an idol show after that, and I don't like idol shows. Idol culture in general, even in this show, is like creepy. And then there's some 3D animation in this show. Probably the worst 3D CG I've ever seen. It's atrocious. Otherwise, it's a delightful show. I want to put it up here, and I also want to put it down here. Like the second season, I think the second season was worse because it kind of just... A lot of shows just kind of like have a fun concept and like they really hit it out the park, and then they just stay in that loop. Decadence. God, this was a show I loved the first episode. I really liked the first episode, the concepts, the characters, and then episode 2 starts and they immediately drop the ball. And it's a show with ups and downs for sure. But I would say it's generously only pretty good. Speaking of which, Tokyo Ghoul. It's alright. I know a lot of people, like, this is a love-hate show if there ever was one. I personally didn't really find much appealing about it. Like, I like the emo boy with his cool power-ups, and the show got way too gory for my taste, like just kind of unpleasant gory, like they're literally torturing people, and I was just not invested. Maybe I'll watch the rest someday, but for now it's pretty. Oh, Danganronpa. It's pretty good. All right, Danganronpa, the animation. The game is obviously better, but the animation is what introduced me to these characters. And the first time, both times I watched this show, because I went back and watched it, I had the same opinion. And I think they just kind of they squeeze the game down a lot. And once you squeeze it down like that, once it's like rapid fire, you just lose so much of the story and the pacing. It just kind of becomes a character death of the week show, and not a very good one at that. But character designs are really fun, cool setting, cool ideas, pretty good. Monster. I watched this earlier this year. It's a show that I like. It took me a while to get through it. It was never a show where it's like, oh, I gotta watch the next episode. But once I turned that episode on, I was glued to my screen. And they have a lot of really cool ideas and concepts and episodes. That being said, I feel like they never truly knew how to end it or where to take these characters. And the ending is kind of just like more of a open to interpretation. Like, the pacing is weird. That being said, though, a lot of people regard this as like some of the best shows ever. I don't, but I do really like it. And I do know it's better than all of these. I might drop it later, but I think I'll put it at the bottom of favorites. Cowboy Bebop. This is one of the most beloved shows ever. For whatever reason, I could never get into it. It took me like 3 tries to finally finish Cowboy Bebop. I love the characters. The animation is gorgeous. It's probably one of the best looking shows ever. Like, especially for that, they have that perfect 90s feel, and there's so much detail, and there's a lot of love. But I think again, like, it's kind of like the pacing. It's very episodic, which if I grew up watching Toonami and I fell in love with it there, I feel like I would have had a better time. But just watching this on Netflix in 2022, I think is when I watched it, just wasn't really doing it for me. And that's not to say I didn't love it. I did. It just wasn't like the peak of I definitely like Monster more. I'll keep it at the bottom of favorites for now. Toradora, probably my favorite romance anime. A lot of problem with romance anime is that the plot is just boring as sin, but for this one, it kept me invested. And you know when you get attached to these characters and then like they just spin the fucking wheels on the romance, but when you're actually caught up in it, you feel so much more committed. And it's one of the shows that didn't just slap you in the face and they're like, oh, they held hands, fuck you. This is Porco Rosso. My buddy Cott, I don't know if he's still here, but he made us watch this movie. It was his choice and he fucking loved it. And by the time I watched it, I really liked it a lot, but I was not meeting his energy. I do really like it, but I just kind of like it for being a Studio Ghibli movie and having my Studio Ghibli-isms. Beautiful shots of planes, obviously. I'm gonna say it's pretty good. This is Haganai? Haganai. It's an interesting show. I remember it got worse. Or no, it got better, I should say. It's a harem show. It's not the cliche bullshit-ass harem show. More of a dissection of harems. But it's pretty good. The ending is kind of ass. Future Diary. I liked Future Diary than I think most people did. This is another love-hate show because it came out when people were really eating up edgy teenager shows. And then they went back and watched it and they're like, damn, that shit was kind of whack. And it is kind of whack. I kind of hate watched it and enjoyed it at the same time because there's some really cool concepts and there's a yandere who just fucking goes off the walls half the show, and there's a big dumb ending, but for some reason I just had a smile on my face. It's pretty good. JoJo's. This includes parts 1 and 2. I am not a big JoJo's guy. And again, I only watched parts 1 and 2, but there was a lot to love about JoJo's. Very meme show. It's a lot of memes just kind of rolled into an anime. Part 1 I would probably give a 7. Part 2 I'd probably give an 8 out of 10. I will give it Sugoi. Magi. This is the anime about Aladdin. It's one of those like really generic animated shows. Like it looks like the new Shaman King, My Hero. Like it's very like squeaky clean, polished, and kind of basic looking. A lot of the character designs are forgettable. But it's an interesting world. I feel like the manga is probably really good because I've heard really good things about the manga. And when this show like gets into like the ending of an arc, like it goes hard. Like those moments alone, I want to put in Sugoi. It is really good, but it took a while to get started. Love Chunibyo and other what was this show? I really like this show. It's another pretty good romance show, but I think season 2, again, it was one of those shows that was like, oh, they're just repeating themselves now and repeating themselves. But it's enjoyable. You know, you have like a silly characters who just don't live in reality. Again, by the time season 2 rolls around, and you're just shaking your head by the end. But I remember I liked season 1 a lot. I'm gonna say it's at the top of pretty good. This is K, one of the most beautiful shows ever. That's assuming you like shows that just look like 1,000 Instagram filters, but you know what? I did, or at least I did at the time. But it is a really good looking show, and there's some cool ideas in there. It's just like the plot and the dialogue and the pacing, that's where it kind of falls apart, but it is pretty good. I also watched one of the movies, haven't watched season 2 yet. Oh, this is gonna kill me. Gaitama. I remember I watched this show in VR. Like whenever I got my VR and I was like, oh, I can watch Hulu in VR, and then I watched like some episodes and I was like on a fucking beach because you know it's a very aquatic type of show. I just have a fond memory of that. It's kind of basic, but I would say it is Sugoi. The Devil is a part-timer. So this is gonna be a kind of unique one because I fucking love the first season of The Devil's a Part-Timer. A really strong 7 or a very light 8 if I remember. But the second season really kind of weighed it down, and I'm not gonna combine them because then by that point it would just be mid. I will say the second season not included, the first season is Sugoi. Gurren Lagann. This is another one of those shows where like I watched it and I thought it was amazing, but you know, it just hasn't lingered in my headspace. I don't think about this show at all ever. So I don't want to put it in my top 10 or anything. But I will say it's fucking epic. Some moments of the show are like some of the best things in anime. I love the characters. I love the ending. It's fantastic. I know it's in my favorites, and it's probably better than at least half of these shows. So yeah, it's a strong favorite. We got The Wind Rises, which I gotta watch the show again. Sometimes with Studio Ghibli movies, the first time you watch them, you really can't like fully appreciate where they're trying to take the story or like what it even truly meant. And I kind of feel that way with Wind Rises. Gotta give that a rewatch. This is like one of those shows that's gonna take me an hour to read the title. So I'm just gonna say, so I'm gonna save you some time and let you know it's mid. Oh, this is season 2 of Love Chunibyo. I'm gonna put it right there. Sayonara Zetsuba Sensei. This is a quirky little show with a lot of things to say and a lot of ways to express those things. I definitely want to rewatch it. The second season I haven't even watched yet, but it is a wacky show. And I would probably love it more if I watched it today, but I remember I think I gave it a 7, and I don't think I have a fond feeling for it like some of these other shows, so I will say it is pretty good. Are You Trying to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon is not my favorite show. This was like the first generic ass isekai, and it still made a bunch of money, so they were like, pump them out. We don't gotta try anymore, guys. Where's my copy and paste buttons? And that's all they've done ever since. Thanks for that. Then we got Parasite. Some people really like Parasite. I like the vibe. I kind of like the like almost horror tones to it. I like the freaky animation and the powers, and when they get into these fights and it's like they're like, that's basically what they're doing. But it's pretty cool. I don't think I loved it though. I would say it's pretty good. Bento. This is a show, again, I think about this one. I don't think I was blown away or anything, but I always think about this show. It's about you know, you've been to a supermarket and sometimes they have their special deals that they do. You know, it's past 5 p.m. We got to put the half off sticker on this. And imagine people just started street fights to get those boxes, to get the half off coupons, and then they start like little turf wars. And it's gonna be Sugoi for me. We got Dragon Ball Super, which I think I see. I don't see Resurrection F. Resurrection F would probably be mid, if I'm being honest. But let's talk about the Dragon Ball movies and Super. We got Battle of Gods, which is Sugoi. This is Dragon Ball coming back into the fold, and there's some things about modern Dragon Ball I don't really like, and they started with Battle of Gods. But I love Beerus, I love Whis. I like that Goku just loses. And again, it's the first time you see Dragon Ball after all these years. The animation has changed, but I wouldn't say it's worse yet. It's pretty epic. Dragon Ball Super Broly is pretty great. I know a lot of people would put it above Battle of Gods. Like, for some people, Dragon Ball Super Broly is the peak of Dragon Ball. If you like that animation style, it's got a lot of it. I think it's better than most of Super's animation, so there are things to appreciate about it. There's a big fuck-all fight scene. It's colorful. I don't see Superhero on here. Superhero I'd probably put in this tier. It was pretty good. But then we got Dragon Ball Super. Dragon Ball Super, I rewatched. I liked it less. The animation is considerably worse. Like, not even just the like episodes that everybody clowned on. Like, just taking different character designs of the old style. Like, if you've seen comparison shots between the old and the new, the old just looks better. And a lot of Super, I could talk all day. There are a lot of things about Super I really like, but the characters aren't nearly as good as they used to be. The pacing, the story, a lot of it isn't that good. And if it wasn't Dragon Ball, I definitely wouldn't like it as much as I do. But I would generously put it in Sugoi. I do really like the Goku Black arc. I like the Tournament of Power. It's really good shit. This is the Violet Evergarden movie. I don't see Violet Evergarden by itself. Oh, nope, here it is. So we can rank these separately. The movie was Sugoi. I remember that much. This was like a lot of things I didn't like about Violet Evergarden is like it didn't really end properly, and we were kind of tiptoeing around characters and some things too much. This show was just like, nope, it's the ending, go hard. The animation, the emotional like baggage that is on Violet Evergarden, people just be crying. I didn't feel like it earned that until this moment, this movie. Violet Evergarden by itself, I think it's a little bit overrated. It's pretty good, but that's just because it looks really pretty. Ruby, we could put it on there twice. Fuck it. Dead Man Wonderland. a show, another one of my most earliest reviews. So I saw it twice, and I think it held up the second time I watched it. It's a lot of really cool ideas, big action scenes, characters manipulating their blood. It's very edgy. I made an AMV to this anime. That's the kind of edgy we're talking about. That being said, though, the ending wasn't too good, and they kind of dropped the ball. That being said, I still really fucked with it. Sugoi. Ghost in the Shell 2. I don't see the other Ghost in the Shell, the first one, right? So I'll just combine them. Ghost in the Shell 1 and Ghost in the Shell 2 are Sugoi. The first one is much better than the second. The second one is just kind of like the Disney animated sequel of the first one. But the first one is iconic. Very thought-provoking show. Changed the game in a lot of ways. Gotta love Ghost in the Shell. This is Hakadoll the animation. It's just kind of one of these like generic like web shows that you watch. You can watch it in a day because it's like super short. Kind of sucked. No, that's not fair. I'll say it's mid. I mean, is it even as good as I'm gonna say it's worse than mid. We got Full Metal Alchemist. I went back and which by the way, it's not on here because it's been a while since I watched it, but the original Brotherhood would be god tier. Brotherhood is peak anime. The original though, a lot of people say you can watch them in either order. No, watch this one first, because after you watch Brotherhood, it's like, ugh, I just want to watch Brotherhood. The animation's much better. The first arcs, I honestly think, are better in the original because they are more fleshed out. But characters that I already know from Brotherhood are just not acting like themselves. Lust is like almost a good guy in this one. Some things are better though, like their sensei. She's fucking badass. She's much more fleshed out in this one. But then the ending is kind of, you know, it's a love-hate relationship, but just because it's Full Metal Sugoi. Haruhi Suzumiya, this is going to include seasons 1 and 2 and The Disappearance. If we're including The Disappearance, that will elevate this show, because that movie is fucking Kino. Haruhi Suzumiya, I went back and watched it. You know, Vanessa hates this show. We have the Endless 8. There are definitely some things to hate about this show. The Haruhi is kind of a bitch to begin with. But it's a fun show. It's very likable and charming, and it's got that, like, it was 2007, that 2007 energy that I adore. Haikyuu, this is your baby's first sports anime, and as you can imagine, it's really good. I've only seen the first 2 seasons, but it's the first show I think of when I think of sports show. We got One Punch Man. I don't even want to talk about One Punch Man. For me, I never understood One Punch Man. I never understood why it's got to be like in a top 10 list. And it seems like a show that'd be perfectly made for me. But maybe I just got to rewatch it. I went back and watched season 2. Everyone told me season 2 sucks, but I was like, seems about the same for me. I'm gonna say it is pretty good. I'll put it at the top just so people don't hate me. Mysterious Bones. This was like another, just one of like those seasonal shows. You know, I think I reviewed it and watched it because I wanted to make more seasonal content, and I of course picked the most like boring ass show possible. I don't think I would have finished this if I wasn't like dedicated to a project. It was alright. I'm gonna say Konosuba is a favorite because I still think about it. I think about the feelings I had watching it. It did lose me a little bit. It has a second season, right? I think by the time the second season ending, I was like, they're repeating jokes and they'll just kind of spam, oh, this character does this character acts like this. But it put a smile on my face, and I do think it's better than all these other shows. I kind of want to raise some of these shows up, but I don't know which one. Mushoku Tensei, maybe? No. I think Konosuba is better than Mushoku Tensei. Sunny Boys. This is another very short show, but it's very funny. I'll let you read the synopsis and you decide if you want to watch it. It's pretty good. This is Gauko-chan, another short show, but it is a pretty fun, charming show. I'll put it in pretty good. Erased. I know a lot of people have contention for Erased. Oh, the ending sucked. Oh, you know, the mystery and the mystery, the answer to the mystery isn't good, then the journey leading up to it is... No! No! Erased is the perfect example of how the mystery could fucking have a terrible payoff, but the journey was awesome. Because I was so invested into the story. There's this little girl and I wanted to protect her like my life depended on it. The time travel elements, the animation, the OP. Oh, I love this show. I remember literally my friend and I was just telling him shows I was watching. I was like, I'm watching this show called Erased. And he's like, this is like halfway through the show when it was still like, you know, considered to be really good. And he was like, you're watching Erased? I'm watching Erased. And we were like, it's so good. I remember just that moment. That being said, yeah, it could have been a favorite, but they dropped the ball. Ajin, the first Netflix style show I watched. Netflix style meaning like the Knights of Sidonia, like those kinds of shows. And it isn't very good. They have some cool ideas. They have like these like demi creatures, like imagine like a shaman in Shaman King, like a person who's attached to you, but they're demons and there's all these rules, and by the time it's over, it's pretty fucking boring. The animation kills it though. Like, it's hard to watch. My Hero Academia. This includes like 6 seasons or something of My Hero, and it's got some ups and downs. Started off, you know, pretty good, and then season 2 was like a 9 out of 10 for me. I love season 2. The sports festival, it was great. I fucking loved it. Then, you know, it's ups and downs. I'm reading the manga too. The manga's really good, but there's one season in particular where it was just I will say it's Sugoi. We have the 2 Final Fantasy stories. They made a movie and a short series. This one was pretty mid. The movie was literally like supposed to be like the first half of the game or something, and then they just cut it and they're like, this is a movie now. Kind of wacky, but I remember it looked spectacular. I'd say it's pretty good. Which one is this? Ooh, I made a video on it. I should remember the name of it. It wasn't good, okay? I remember that much. It wasn't good. Now, we have reached the apex, the ultimate, the Kino. I present to you Mob Psycho 100, which is God tier. After watching season 3, I can safely say Mob Psycho is in my like top 5 anime ever. Some of the best writing out there. It's a show that kept putting a smile on my face. It's probably one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. At the same time, some of my favorite characters in anime. You gotta watch Mob Psycho 100. It is mandatory. Yuri on Ice, the figure skating show. I think about this show from time to time, but only because the opening, probably my top 10 openings. We were born to make history. It's so epic. I love it. The show itself, though, you know, a lot of people when this came out were praising it to high heaven, and it has not aged well. Not a lot of Yuri on Ice fans out there anymore. Nyanbo. This is like a very wacky, cute show. I loved it. I just have a fond memory. I actually watched this the last time I moved. Like, my house was all packed up and I had nothing to do for like a couple hours. So I was just like, I guess I'll just binge Nyanbo. And that's what I did. and it's Sugoi, and I don't care what people say. Oh, there's Ghost in the Shell. Okay, so Ghost in the Shell is Sugoi. And then where is Innocence? There it is. That's pretty good. Okay. All has been restored. Little Witch Academia. This is another one of those shows that like hit really hard, but like as time progresses, you don't know if you loved it as much as you did when you watched it. Like I thought about this the other day. I don't remember any of these characters' names. Not one. And I feel terrible about that. And just for that reason, I don't think I can put it in God tier. I did have it on my top 10 list at the time, but I'm going to put it right next to Gurren Lagann, because I feel the same way about both these shows, where it was like on my top 10, but as time has progressed, I just haven't come back to it like I thought I would. Then we got Amagi Brilliant Park. This is a fun show. It's a one and done fun little show. And then we have Fireworks. This is another one of those shows where it's like kids getting into a romance story, and obviously I watched it on Netflix. That being said though, I don't think it was it's probably my least favorite from this genre. I'm gonna say it's I did like it a lot though. I would give it Sugoi. I'm fine with it being in Sugoi. What is this? Kakegurui. This is a interesting show. It's a gambling show with a lot of like very attractive women who get and guys, attractive guys too, you know, don't want to discriminate. There are guys in the show. And it's a literally school that they're in revolved around gambling. And as interesting as that is, the show kind of falls apart in certain ways. Then I don't want to include the spin-off. The spin-off was pretty basic. The sequel was just kind of more of the same. I'm gonna say it's pretty good. Made in the Abyss. This was a great show. I have gone back to watch the movies. I've gone through the first two movies, so I'm kind of just back where I started because the first two movies just remake the first two cores of the show. But I'm ready for more. I think whenever I watch season 3, if it lives up to what people have told me about it, it'll be in my favorites. But for now, it should be at the top of Sugoi. Again, these aren't like ranked, but I want it to be right there, so I know. 18if. This is a show that like I remember I really liked it, but then like I went back and I watched clips of it, and I was just kind of like, I really like this show. I lowered the score on my anime list. That's how much, because I would always like see my shows ranked, and I would scroll past it, and I was like, did I really like that show? It was. I know it was at least pretty good though. The animation was pretty wacky. Your Name. I love this fucking movie. I've seen it twice. The first time I was pretty mid. I think I gave it a 7. Second time I watched it, blew my ass off. Fucking loved it. The animation is god tier. The characters I was much more invested in. I love Your Name. I'm gonna put that in my favorites. We're gonna put Cyberpunk in the god tier. We're gonna put Neon Genesis and Your Name up here. And now it feels a little bit more evened out. I don't like putting like Anthem of the Heart and Your Name on the same tier, or Konosuba and Cyberpunk. Okay, Recovery of an MMO Junkie. This is kind of like your basic show, not very substantial. Juni Taisen, The Zodiac War. This is a show with a lot of ups and downs. When it's up, you have these epic battles with like characters that are inspired by zodiac animals, and like there's a bunny who jumps into the sky and snipes a dude up there, or just shreds them. But at the same time, the show wastes so much time. That same dude who got murked in like half a second, they spent the whole episode on him. They spent 20 minutes of time dedicating themselves to a character just to rip him to shreds. And as cool as that sounds, once you do that with enough characters, you don't care about any of them. But it's pretty good. Ponyo. I would say this is my top 5 Studio Ghiblis. Ponyo is adorable. It's a super quirky Studio Ghibli film. I think the animation is better than most of the Studio Ghibli films as well. I'm gonna put in Sugoi. And that might be a favorite, actually. You know what? Since this has been more realistically set now, I can comfortably put some of these in here. Fruits basket? No. Okay. I feel better. What is this? Is that citrus? I've kind of forgotten what the characters even look like for this show. It's a pretty forgettable Yuri show. You know, two characters who don't like each other find out they're gonna be stepsisters, and oh no, they like each other. Oh god, how did that happen? This is a Godzilla anime. I think this was like a trilogy of Netflix movies, and just like all the other Netflix movies or from this studio, it looks like ass. The story is ass. I dedicated myself to watching a movie, and I never wanted to leave a movie so bad in my life. Ingress Animation. This is just Pokemon Go, the anime. I have a main channel video about this one, so if you really want my thoughts, it's pretty mid, to be honest. More Netflix ugly garbage, you know. Megalobox. This is a show I really wanted to like, but I don't know, it was missing something. But what you do have is like a very cool character, like Spike Spiegel style character, who's like in this really cool boxing story, really like passionate rivalry. But I don't know, I think those should be enveloped in like a story with better side characters and maybe a little bit better pacing, and it could have been really special. And they try to make it look like a 90s show, like with the art direction, but like it's not quite there. Like, it looks good, but it's just not quite that. Sankaria. Rhea? This is a cute little show about a guy who resurrects a zombie by accident, and they have a little romance. And this is one of the first manga I read, because I happened to watch the show at a time when I was like first getting into manga. I was like, oh, I can finish the story. And it's pretty good. I don't think you have to watch it or anything, but it was pretty good. Batman Ninja. This is a anime. This is a Batman anime where he goes back to feudal Japan alongside like all his classic villains, and they start like these little wars, and it turns into this. It goes off the fucking rails. There's mecha suits. There's a lot of really other dumb anime stuff. I think if they would have made it, if they made it longer and kind of fleshed out some of the things, because a lot of the time they're just like, oh, here's Red Hood. Red Hood looks like this. Red Hood story, and like that's the pacing. Final Battle, mecha suit. Like it goes off the fucking rails. It's epic though. I love it. Like, it's dumb. Like, it was actually like a cool Batman story, just taking place in feudal Japan, and then it turns into something else, but it's still pretty great. I need to watch this movie again, because I must have not gotten with the picture, and I don't remember it. I don't remember the goddamn name. A Silent Voice? Is that it? I need to watch it again, because a lot of people put this side by side with Your Name, and I did not get that experience. But the first time I watched Your Name, you know, I didn't like it that much, so maybe I just gotta watch it again. We have Fruits Basket again. I'm gonna put it right next to the other one, just so we can all remember that Fruits Basket is Sugoi. After that, the last anime on our list, you already know what it is. Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. I don't know if you could tell, I really fuck with Demon Slayer. It's one of the first shows I watched it and I immediately was just like, that's a 10 out of 10. It's a fucking masterpiece is what it is. And I've gone back to watch it here and there, and I still feel the same. I still think Demon Slayer kicks ass. I know a lot of people are sick of Demon Slayer. They're off the Demon Slayer hype train. Even now, for me, a little bit, like the current season and even the past season a little bit, it's not hitting the same highs. And I think I was just in the right place at the right time with season 1, but I would still say Demon Slayer is God tier. With that being said, we have our list. This is all my anime ranked. You can see at the top, these I can safely say are my favorite shows. Right underneath it are obviously more of my favorites, but these shows are peak anime for me. Obviously, I'm missing like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and some other stuff I haven't seen in a long time. I gotta re-watch those shows to confirm my feelings. But we have a stack of really great shows right here. Sugoi. And underneath that, all these shows are worth watching. I had a good time with all of these shows and movies. Wouldn't change a thing. Underneath that, you know, a lot of mid shows. I don't try to finish that many mid shows, but, you know, they slip through the cracks, and I don't even want to think about these shows at the bottom.